Let's commence the book haul. This is not a good angle. Hi friends, welcome back. How are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. And happy festive season, happy holidays. Today's video is all about books, and books. And I will divide this video into chapters so you can just click on a part that you want to see or watch the entire video, which is of course the best option. While you're at it, definitely click that subscribe button and hit that bell so you never miss another video of me again. Let's get started. Before we start this long book haul video, which I will hopefully edit into 20 minutes of fun, I want to say thank you to my patrons because you guys are amazing. You are a big help, and if you feel like it is something for you, then definitely come join us. Just head over to patreon.com, type in my name, Leanda Books, or click on the link in my description. Also, in this new apartment, we have like this big freaking windows, and I feel like everyone can watch me. On the one hand, I know I shouldn't be ashamed of like being a YouTuber, make these videos. But on the other hand, my neighbors will see me sitting at a table with a lot of books, two very bright lights, a camera, and me talking to that camera. The ideas that they must have. I'm gonna start with the pile that is on my left, and these are basically fantasy books that I bought for myself. The first book on this pile is called Untethered. It is the sequel to Shielded, and it's written by Kaylynn Flanders. You guys might have heard of her first book, Shielded, because that was in one of the Fairyloot boxes, and I really enjoyed that. It's very tropey and very straightforward YA fantasy. It pretty much goes back to the basics, but she did that really well. It's a solid story, interesting characters. There's this evil mage, a castle, a princess. It's just a good story, and that's why I really wanted to support the author and buy her second book. I can't really tell anything about the story because that would be spoilers, but it's still about Janasara, our main character, a princess. And I'm interested to see how this story is gonna wrap up because it is a duology. I also love the artwork on these covers. And the naked cover is pretty as well. I didn't know about that. Please grab yourself a coffee or a tea because I still have like 24 books to show you guys. Next up is, I don't know if you guys can see this. Oh, you can. It is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. They say that the Thorn of Camor can beat anyone in a fight. They say he steals from the rich and gives to the poor. They say he's part man, part myth, and mostly street corner rumor. And they are wrong on every count. And then it says, a fresh, original, engrossing, and gorgeously realized George R.R. Martin. That's gotta mean something, right? This book was gifted to me by one of my friends, and I just realized that it has been standing on my shelves for over 6 months now. Wow, time goes by fast. I have heard a lot of good things about this fantasy book, especially from adult fantasy readers, and I think this is a trilogy. Then I have bought the third book and the final book in the Serpent and Dove trilogy, Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin. And you can see the other two books in the background. I think a lot of you will be familiar with this book. I absolutely adored Serpent and Dove. I also did enjoy Blood and Honey, although I think a lot of people will feel a different way. And I am still really excited about Gods and Monsters. You have the power to burn the world, Louise LeBlanc, and shape the ashes into something new. I am so curious to see who is gonna be the god and who is gonna be the monster, because I'm not sure at this point. Let's see if this one has a map as well. Yes, it does. It has the same map of Belterra. Next is another sequel that I really wanted to buy. It is Illusionary by Zoraida Cordova. Her first book is called Incendiary. It came in one of the Fairyloot boxes. It reminded me a little bit of Star Wars, like this rebel kind of group that's roaming the deserts. It just really had that vibe. It's been a while, so I'm just gonna look at my review on Goodreads. Our main character, Renata, is a Robari, a memory thief, the rarest and most feared of the magical Moria. Then there are also the Ventari, Persuari, and Illusionary. Illusionary. It's pretty much the rebellion, the minority against the Empire, a prince with secrets, and girl seeks out vengeance for her lost love. The story is pretty predictable if you're familiar with the YA fantasy genre. The characters are fun and diverse, and I will definitely want to read the sequel when it comes out. At least I'm true to my word. The next book is a release that I was really looking forward to, but sadly have not read yet. It is this huge book called Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. I'm gonna guess and say that it is about vampires. From holy cup comes holy light. The faithful hand sets worlds aright. And in the 7 martyrs' sight, mere man shall end this endless night. I also adore this cover. It's way too shiny for you guys. I'm so sorry, that's the lighting. I am super excited to read this, even though I haven't read any work by J. Kristoff before. I do have the first book in his Nevernight trilogy. Still need to pick that one up. Vampires have waged war against humanity. And Gabrielle de Leon, half man, half monster, and last remaining silver saint, is all that stands between the world and its end. Kind of reminds me of that show on Netflix called Castlevania. This would have been the perfect October read, but too many pages. So again, next year's goals. The next 3 books that I want to show you guys are books that fall into a different category, a different genre. First up is this beautiful book called Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. It is the 3rd book in the Skyward trilogy, and I am so looking forward to this book. I have read the first 2 books, you can see them over there. Skyward and Starside. Haven't read it yet. I just got this. I ordered it from Waterstones. It is signed by the author. There it is. The man himself. The main character is called Spencer. She wants to become a pilot in a spaceship, a fighter pilot to be specific, and there is a real threat. And pretty much the first book is about her building her character, meeting friends, going through training, and that's probably all I can tell you guys without giving away any spoilers. It's a pretty epic story with a lot of good world building, and to my surprise, Sanderson is still going because there will be a 4th book. And I also know that there are 2 books between the 2nd and the 3rd book, Cytonic, and I saw on Goodreads that people advise you to read those first so that the story will make more sense. I might do that because I want to get the full experience. And there's another map. And if you didn't know by now, this is definitely a sci-fi book. I think the next book doesn't really have a certain genre. It comes closest to magical realism. It is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. The beauty of the house is immeasurable, its kindness infinite. I've read this book within 24 hours because it was part of the Triwizardathon that I hosted with Tabby, but I think anyone can read this under 24 hours. It's really captivating. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, not because of thrills, but because of the mystery, and you want to find out what is up with the main character and why he's walking around in this weird house with statues. And it kind of becomes clear in the end. I do have some theories about it, which I might talk about in a later video, but it's definitely an interesting and unique kind of read. Apparently I buy a lot of books at Waterstones because this is another Waterstones signed exclusive edition. It is Under the Whispering Door by T.G. Klune. Before you ask, I have not read The House on the Cerulean Sea. At the Cerulean Sea. I haven't read it, but I heard so many good things about it, and so many people said it was such an enjoyable and original read that I really wanted to buy the next book that he was going to publish. Apparently it's a life and death love story. A man who lives to help the dead meets a man who died, then learned how to live. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a terrific read, and it's signed. Let's move on to the books from Once Upon a Book Club. They are a great book box. They have young adult and adult, but I ordered their adult box. They have a very unique concept. You get this box. In it is a book of the month. You read the book, you come across post-its, and they will let you know when to open a gift. And this really enhances the reading experience. It's really enjoyable and they pick really good books. If you want to try them, you can get 10% off your first purchase by using my discount code Leanda Books 10. So from them, Once Upon a Book Club, I have gotten the following books. First up is The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This was just a really enjoyable romance book. It's about Shay Goldstein and Dominic Yun, and they both work at this radio station. They don't really like each other, and then there's this idea to host a show called The X-Talk. For this, they have to pretend that they are exes, so they are kind of forced to get to know each other a little bit better, and it goes from there. As I said, it's just a really enjoyable romance read, and I flew through the pages. Then there's Meet Me in Paradise by Libby Hubscher. This book was an emotional roller coaster. It looks really fun and festive, but it's really sad. It's about these two sisters, Mahurin and Sadie, and Mahurin has been playing it safe, and Sadie wants to mess her life up a little bit to get her more out of her shell, to be more adventurous. There's a reason for that is revealed later on in the story, but as Mahurin gets on the plane, Sadie misses her flight. So Mahurin is alone on the island of Saba, and there she meets Lucas, and together they start exploring the island. I feel like I should say that there is a kind of trigger warning in here that has to do with terminal illness. If you guys want to hear more about these books and see the gifts that came with it, just head over to my playlist, Book Box Unboxings. Next, Reset by Selena Dahlan. This was such a good read in my opinion. I want to say it's sci-fi romance. To prevent mankind from destroying each other again, its citizens undergo a memory wipe every 4 years in a process called tabula rasa, a blank slate. With each new cycle, they begin again with new names, jobs, homes, and lives. No memories, no attachments, no war. And then on the cover it says, can you love someone you don't remember? That's basically the question throughout the whole book. I feel like it also has some philosophical elements, life questions, psychological elements. It was just my kind of book, and somehow I also resonated with the author. I can really recommend this one. If the Shoe Fits, a meant-to-be novel by Julie Murphy. I recently finished this book. I really enjoyed it. Another great romance read. It's a modern retelling of Cinderella, but this time the female is in the lead. Like, she has the power to see if the shoe fits, and if it doesn't fit, she's gonna make a shoe for him. It's that kind of story. Somehow our main character Cindy finds herself in this TV show that is very similar to The Bachelor, and our main character is crazy about shoes. That's all I'm gonna say. And then the final book from Once Upon a Book Club, I've got 2 more, but I still need to open those boxes, so I didn't think it would be fair to show them in this book haul. The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. I have almost finished this book. It's definitely a thriller. You might know Lisa Jewell from The Family Upstairs or Then She Was Gone, and people that know her work say that this is her best so far. It really pulls you in. You really want to know what is going to happen next. There are some good plot twists that I didn't see coming. I do wish we got to know the characters a little bit more before she dropped us into this mystery, but it's good so far. I mean, it's like a puzzle and you find all these pieces and then slowly it's coming together. It's about these 2 teens, Tallulah and Zach. They have this baby boy called Noah, and just before they turn 20, they both just disappear and nobody knows what has happened to them. There were people involved, but by the time the case gets reopened, which is like 1 or 2 years later, everyone that was involved with the case is just gone. But then all of a sudden there's this sign that says dig here, and they find a ring that has to do with the case with Zach and Tallulah. It's really interesting. There are different timelines, different character perspectives, and I'm excited to see how it's going to end. This next pile are the books from Fairyloot. First up is this pretty paperback edition of Afterlove by Tanya Byrne. This is a sapphic romance with a little twist because one of the girls is a reaper, and that pretty much means she is dead. Not even death will tear them apart. Oh no, I just realized my fireplace ended. Fireplace is back on again. I can recommend this book to everyone. Then a book that I do not recommend. No, that's not entirely true. This is Witches Steeped in Gold by Ciannon Smart. I adore this cover and the naked cover. It's a very powerful story about witches. It's Jamaican inspired. It has some really good fantasy elements, and I did like parts of the story. It's not a bad story. I think it's really enjoyable, but there are just way too many details that the author does not explain. I think I gave it 3 stars because I did still enjoy it, but just not enough to make me want to read the sequel. And honestly, I still cannot tell you what this book was about. There are 2 main female characters, Uriah Adair, and she has spent her entire life in a cell, and she just wants freedom so she can take vengeance. And then there's Jasmine Carriot, who grew up in the palace. She's the daughter of the queen, and that is the same person that Uriah seeks vengeance upon. They are sworn enemies, but they form this deadly alliance. It goes on from there. I still feel like you should give this book a try if this is your thing, but for me, it just wasn't it. Then we have 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, another beautiful edition. A princess in exile, a shape-shifting dragon, 6 enchanted cranes, and an unspeakable curse. It will take more than magic to find their way home. The main character is called Shiori Anma, and she is somehow cursed by the sorceress that turns her brothers into cranes, and then she sets out on a quest to find them. I'm really looking forward to read this book because I recently read Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and I really enjoyed that. She has an easy to read writing style and just the right amount of world building, character dialogues, and a bit of romance. So another YA fantasy to add to my TBR. Talking about beautiful editions, this is another one, The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. I've already read this book. I really enjoyed it. I do really want to buy and read the next book, The Gilded Cage. When I first read what this book was about, a healer that resides in a prison, I just didn't get it. I thought this is never going to be a good story, but it is. It's such a good story. It has all these trials of earth, wind, and fire, and water. There is a prince, there's a rebellion. It's just a very enjoyable story, and it's something different from the usual YA fantasy stories. And then there's These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, another book that I've already read. It is about fae, there's a romance, there is royalty, there's a shower scene, and there's questing. It pretty much has everything I like. Oh, and there are fae artifacts. Yeah, it does have everything I like. There is some resemblance to ACOTAR. It's nowhere near as good in my opinion, but it is good. So if you love YA fantasy, you don't mind tropes and a little bit of immaturity from our main character who has a tendency to get angry and walk away, then I can definitely recommend this. I also wanted to mention that even though I stopped getting the Fairyloot boxes, I am gonna resubscribe in the new year, but for the adult fantasy box. It will only contain a book, a beautiful special edition, but I think in the near future, when there's enough interest, they will also add items, but they have to start somewhere. I think you can sign up for it in March, so I'm really excited about that. Moving on to classics. Classics are very important, and I have this idea that I want to read classics for 24 hours because I've gotten some really good and beautiful editions of classic stories. The first that I want to show you guys is this edition from Mina Lima of Beauty and the Beast by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve. That's my French accent. I had no clue that this was written by this woman. Call me ignorant, but I just thought Disney invented the Beauty and the Beast. So I am really excited to read the actual classic, especially now that I have a Mina Lima edition with all these interactive pages and illustrations. Fun fact, it was initially published in 1740. These next books are from Literary Crate. They had this classic collection that you could order. And from the moment that I saw them, I knew I had to order them. First is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The books come in these slipcases. I think that's the word. And they look absolutely beautiful. The books themselves have beautiful covers, gold edges, and there are even some illustrations inside, like this one and this one. It just makes me want to read. The next book in their classic collection is The Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Bronze. Again, there's art on both sides of the case. You slip the book out of it. Another beautiful cover. And yes, golden edges. There's this beautiful family tree and some illustrations spread out through the book. I do know what Pride and Prejudice is about, but I don't know what Wuthering Heights is about. I feel like it's another romance novel, and it just also makes me feel sad when I look at the art. Probably not gonna end well for these characters. And the final book is Jane Eyre, artwork of the two main characters, I presume. I have never read this story. I don't know a lot about it. I do have a vague memory of watching the movie, but I have no clue what it was about. A female main character that goes through struggles. And this is written by Charlotte Bronte. Is this like her sister or something? Because the other one is called Emily Bronte, right? Are they related? Interesting. Beautiful artwork on both sides. And of course, illustrations. Like this one and this. Honestly, just look at these books. I'm so happy that I bought them and excited to plan my 24 hours of reading classics. And finally, I wanted to talk to you guys about audiobooks. Audiobooks are really dependent on the narrator. If you find the narrator annoying or maybe don't like his voice, then it can really mess up the story. So I wanted to share a few good audiobooks with you guys. The first one is The Lost Village. I don't know about the physical book, but the audiobook had a lot of suspense. I really enjoyed it. It's a perfect October read, just a really good read in general. It's this group of young people that go to a little village where one day all the inhabitants disappeared, and there are rumors about this cult. A dead woman was found, but they kind of gave up on the investigation, and then a decade later a group of young people go there to film a documentary, and then strange things start to happen. A good thriller read with a good narrator. Then there's Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think a lot of you guys will have already heard about this book, but it is about this group called the Six. They are a rock band in the 70s, I want to say. The rock and roll lifestyle. Later they are joined by Daisy Jones and they become Daisy Jones and the Six. The entire book is an interview and you get to know the characters and their story through their interviews. It was written in such a way that I had to look up if this was an actual band. It's really believable, but the author did get inspired by an actual band and an actual female character. The story itself is pure fictional, and I think the audiobook really works because it is an interview and each character is narrated by a different person. It just did a really good job. So I can really recommend it as an audiobook. It Ends With Us by Kaylynn Hoover. Another book that probably a lot of you have already read. It's a really powerful story. It's boy meets girl. Both have a background story and then there's a turn in their relationship. It's a romance read, but it's not. It made me cry. I was really impressed by the author's notes at the end. So if you listen to this book, listen to those as well. It's a good story and inspirational. And the narrator did an awesome job. And then the last book that I want to share with you guys that I bought all these books on Audible. I get a credit each month for my monthly pay, and then I buy these books with these credits. So the final book that I want to talk about is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I literally just finished this book. I have never read anything like it. It's about these two teenage boys, Mateo and Rufus, and they live in this world where you get a call from Deathcast when it's your death day, and there are all these facilities and places you can go to celebrate your last day on Earth, like take a trip around the world in 80 minutes or something and go skydiving in virtual reality. It's such an innovative concept, but it also makes you think about what if you knew what day you were going to die. You know it's gonna happen, you don't know how, but you know you have less than 24 hours left. Who are you going to spend it with? And then there's this app called Last Friend, and that's how these boys meet up. It's a beautiful, captivating story. It's probably the same when you read the physical book, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. Just thinking about the book makes me sad again. That was it, guys. Those were all the books in this huge book haul. Let me know in the comments if you own any of these books or if you have any recommendations based on the books that I buy. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and let's stay in touch.